Joining me live now is political strategist and Trump Advisory Board member Jason Meister. Jason, thank you so much for joining us. Yes, the Iowa caucuses held this Monday, marking the start of the presidential nomination process, known as the launch pad for candidates. Of course, we've just seen there Donald Trump up against the two main candidates. We've got Ron DeSantis and former UN Ambassador Nikki Haley. How do you think it's going to go? It's a very important caucus, this Iowa.
Sure. Thanks for having me. I actually, in my own humble opinion, I believe the primaries have been over for quite some time. Donald Trump has been beating every one of his challengers in the Republican primaries in almost every state by 50 or 60 points. I think the Democrats' lawfare has propelled him. It's been rocket fuel from a political perspective. I think Nikki Haley is going to underperform. I think she's getting propped up by the donor establishment class. She's a neocon globalist who I don't think that the Trump supporters or the MAGA base is going to be very well receptive to. I think Ron DeSantis' political future is over. And I think that you may see Vivek Ramaswamy outperform from what the polls have been saying. I think he's been running a very, very strong campaign throughout Iowa.
And what do you think Donald Trump's chances are? He hasn't been in the debates with the other candidates. He's been debating on his own. It seems to be a good tactic for him. Is he going to be the front runner in this caucus, do you think?
I have no doubt that he will be the front runner. And part of that is because the Democrats have just gone too far. It's very clear and evident right now that Joe Biden's White House is coordinating, orchestrating, and directing the political persecution of his top political rival, Donald J. Trump, who right now, by the way, is beating him in every single poll, in every single swing state. Meanwhile, because of Joe Biden's incredible weakness on the national stage, his disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan, we are now in a war in Israel. We're in a war in Yemen. We're in a war in Ukraine. We have terrorist threats on U.S. soil by Hezbollah. We're in a proxy war in Russia, a proxy war in Iran. And we have a wide open southern border where nearly 9 million illegal immigrants have invaded the United States of America since he took office. So, yeah, I think the American people are fed up with this traitor.
In terms of the Iowa caucuses, I mean, I believe there's more than $100 million spent out of the $258 million in ad spending. This is a very significant caucus. Why is that?
Look, it's the first state. It's gonna be able to take a lot of headline space. I think it takes a lot of oxygen out of the political room. But I think that this primary really has been over for quite some time. I think Ron DeSantis has been very disappointing. His retail politics, as you see him going around Iowa, has been nearly pathetic. And I think that he just doesn't have what it takes. Nikki Haley clearly doesn't have what it takes. Chris Christie dropped out before we ever even got to the Iowa votes. I think he was only in there as a punching bag for Donald Trump. So I think this primary really is over. I think Donald Trump's going to soundly beat every one of these candidates. And I look forward to the general election.
We just heard on the CNN report that the icy cold conditions in the US are having an impact on Iowa. The caucus is taking place on Martin Luther King Jr. Day. Many people have that day off. How is that going to impact voters, do you think?
Look, I think we have a very interested public right now. I think that people are engaged, given how far our country has fallen since Joe Biden took office. Look, you really have a very clean way of looking at this. You had 4 years under Donald Trump that you can compare now to the 4 years under Joe Biden. You have inflation at a 40-year high. You have a wide open southern border. You have tremendous homicides and crime in all the major Democrat-run cities in this country. So I think people are very engaged in the political process, and I think you're going to see that play out in the primaries.
We know polls haven't always been accurate. You're saying Donald Trump is, by far the front runner. How are these court appearances and his trials going to influence people's vote, do you think?
I actually think they're going to be very significant in the impact of how this all turns out. I think that people, moderate Democrats and independents, are watching what they're doing to a former president of the United States who was arguably one of the greatest presidents in my lifetime. And they're saying that this is totally and utterly un-American to politically persecute. I mean, all four bogus indictments were filed after Donald Trump announced that he was running for president. It's very clear that the last election cycle was the universal mail-in ballots. That was the way that they decided that they were going to cheat in the 2020 election. And I think that the lawfare that they're pushing against Donald Trump, getting him into courtrooms across this country as opposed to allowing him to get his message to the American people, I think it's un-American. I think that his success in the 2024 election is directly tied to the success of the American people and this country. And if we don't have success and Trump is not reelected the 47th president of the United States, I think this country has seen some of the worst days in history.
If Donald Trump was president right now, how do you think he would be dealing with the current conflict in the Middle East?
Well, I don't think you'd have a conflict to begin with. If you look at 2020 to now, the Middle East is now burning. He had the Abraham Accords. He brought peace to the Middle East. I mean, he was a 4-year hiatus from the military-industrial complex. We had no new wars. We had no conflicts. I don't think that you'd even have a war in Ukraine if President Trump was in office. So I think it was his peace through strength. He used the military surgically, but never, only when he needed to. And I think that he would bring peace to the world.
US Defence Secretary Lloyd Austin was criticised for keeping cancer diagnosis from Joe Biden and the advisories and the team in the administration. Why do you think he kept it quiet, and what are the ramifications for Lloyd Austin?
Yeah, look, I think it's a dereliction of his responsibility to at least tell the White House and tell the rest of the American people what's going on. And given all these conflicts, it's very important for the transparent for the Biden administration to be transparent to the American people, to understand who's leading the charge, what's going on. And they're saying that he was launching this war from his hospital bed laptop. So I think that does have serious ramifications, and we'll have to see how that plays out.
Jason Meister, great to see you. Thanks so much for your time.